On previous trips to China, we stayed at a hotel over by the Bund. This one's closer to the center of town, but it looked like it'd be acceptable. Breakfast wasn't quite the same, and our living room was smaller. The surroundings were nice, and the signboards and street art were somewhat different. A group of us arrived a day early, so we made a trip to one of the many water villages to the west of Shanghai. The villages have been bypassed by industry, but they do quite well out of day trippers coming from Shanghai. It was early and the weather was cool, so the only action on the canal was this fellow clearing out any litter. They had a small museum. The waitress demonstrated the proper method of preparing your food to eat. The Chinese have recently completed a high-speed train line from Shanghai to Kunming in Yunnan. On the 23rd of November, we caught this train as far as the province of Jianxi, where we were met by a local guide with a bus. As you can see, there was a lot of smog. I did say it was high speed. One of her first English-speaking groups will have been asked to provide her with an English name which can be pronounced or which we can pronounce, and they had chosen Candy. A few miles north of Shangrao is the Sanking Mountain tourist area. It is very popular. Heading for the chairlift. All those canes are rather ominous. You didn't have to take the chairlift, but it looked a lot easier. Candy said there was a short walk from the top of the chairlift to the hotel. Seeing it's in the mountains, we should have realized that it was up. The short walk was about equivalent to 25 stories in a tower block, but everybody sort of agreed that it was well worth it for the view. Some of us carried on to try to catch the sunset. We were too late. The sun was down, starting to get dark. I'm a bit paranoid about stair steps in the night, so we went back. Myrtle had a knee operation scheduled for about a month and a half later, so she was given a room quite low down, but was quite concerned about the trip back down. She needn't have worried. A solution was at hand, but more of that later. After breakfast, Candy took us on a walk, which she assured us was level. And it was, after the first ups and downs, of course. Sand King Mountain is holy to the Taoist religion. It was first settled by hermits in about 360 AD. It gets its name from the three peaks, which are taken to represent the three main gods in Taoism. The elephant's trunk. These paths and stairways were built by the local people. All the material was carried on their backs and all the work done by hand. It was completed around 2000. It looks like they're playing hide and seek, but Felix is just setting Yolanda up for a photo. This is where we were last night. It looks like a wonderful playground, but we didn't have time to stop and play. Apparently, it takes 2 days to check out all the trails. We got back to the hotel to find the porters with a chair out and very anxious to get Myrtle into it so I could take her back down. We got her sat down. I passed her pack. The back porter grabbed it, tossed it on her lap. I tried to pass her walking stick, but they were gone. I tried getting a photograph of her, but I couldn't catch up. And people waiting down below to catch a picture of her coming down didn't get one either because they passed too quickly. They ran the whole way. A bit of a drive, an upper chairlift to Howling Village. This village has a 580-year history, but by 2008 was dilapidated and falling into ruins. A consortium of government and private capital rehoused the residents and renovated the old houses into hotel rooms, shops, restaurants, and such. Displaced villagers have been employed to work there and to continue their farming practices as a tourist attraction. It has been very successful. They've had a maximum of 33,000 tourists in one day. That information came from the Beijing Review, 5th of January 2018. I don't know what this is about, but it was a good reminder of where we turned to get to our room. Yaoli is near the center of the old Chinese pottery area. The industry has moved a few miles away. The village still shows signs of its old prosperity. Wash Day. The stick is for beating them instead of using soap. Not a family to be trifled with. Rental bikes with solar-powered locks. Known as the porcelain capital of China, this town once had many different factories. Nowadays, industry has moved elsewhere. The old buildings very often still remain. Some have been turned into a museum with the tradesmen demonstrating the arts.
涮水啊，炉子打开，平面直放，对，往内拉，涮起来。响了，你响了啊，好吧啊，都响了，响了一点点，力度要均匀，啊，这样力度要均匀这里可以销售的，可以买啊，你外面看不到的哈，手工是。
On the wall of our hotel was this circle of white plates. They projected china patterns onto it. It's quite effective. There were a lot more than shown here. Here too they have themed lampposts. These, of course, are ceramic. Their architecture is far more imaginative than we have in the West. Continuing on the subject of the themed lampposts, one might think that we're coming to an area about birds. They would be right. Poyang Lake is considered the largest freshwater lake in China, and it services a whole batch of migratory birds and quite a number of permanent ones. This statue represents a young girl who went out on the lake looking for her grandfather who was lost in a storm. She was lost too, but she has been adopted by the fishermen as a savior and is treated more or less like a saint. There are several different species represented in this enclosure. Why do they stay? I never thought to ask, but Felix did. It seems that the trees and the enclosing fence are such that the birds cannot get a long enough run to take off, so they stay. Quite simple. The water level was too low for them to be very effective. Most of these are Chinese swan geese. The park attendant said he was going to make them fly, and he did. Took his wheelbarrow of food up to one end and fed them a little bit. Then he took the wheelbarrow and ran like mad to the other end, and of course the birds followed. Nanchang is the capital of Jianxi province. Tenwang Pavilion was built in 653 AD. It was destroyed during a war in 1926, but rebuilt in 1985. Its main source of popularity is because of association with some poets. We leave Jianxi and catch a train to our next stop, Guizhou.